Bang! My front door didn't just open, it exploded like someone had kicked it off the hinges. 3 men in cheap security uniforms stormed into my kitchen screaming at me to freeze like I was some wanted criminal. My hands were shaking, my heart thundering in my chest, and all I could think was, this is my house, my cabin, my dream. And somehow, I was being treated like a trespasser. I had bought this lakeside cabin with everything I had. $180,000 saved over years of grinding at work, weekends sacrificed, late nights spent over spreadsheets while everyone else had a life. This place wasn't just a property, it was my father's dream, the retreat he never got to have before he passed. Fixing it up with my own hands was supposed to be my tribute to him. That Saturday morning had started so perfectly, coffee and the old percolator classic rock humming on my phone, and the steady rhythm of my drill as I hung new cabinets. The smell of fresh sawdust mixing with lake air that was peace. And then chaos. 2 guards treated my power tools like contraband. One barked at me to step away, another acted like my drill was a loaded gun. I was too stunned to even move when she appeared, Laura Allen. Perfectly styled gray hair business suit that looked absurd in a dusty cabin clipboard clutched like a weapon. She strutted in like she owned the place, cold smile slicing right through me. "Mr. Stone, you are in serious violation of community standards," she announced, barely glancing at the deed I shoved at her. "Individual property deeds don't supersede community authority." Community authority. I wanted to laugh, but I was too terrified. I just bought this cabin, every penny I had tied up in it. And here was this stranger telling me my work was unauthorized modifications to community property. She poked at my cabinets, scribbled on her forms, rattled the basement door handle, her eyes flashing with something darker than just petty power. When it wouldn't open, her whole demeanor cracked for a second, panic frustration, before she slapped a padlock on my front door and handed me a violation notice. $4,000 in fines payable in 24 hours, or she'd seize the cabin. $4 grand. For hanging kitchen cabinets in my own damn house. I stood on the porch like a refugee, clutching papers that looked official enough to scare anyone. Behind me, Tyler the younger guard boxed up my tools while Laura supervised like it was a police raid. Every board I'd nailed, every cabinet I'd hung for my dad's memory was suddenly treated like criminal evidence. That night I sat in a motel room that smelled like bleach and regret, staring at that violation notice. My head spun with questions. Could I really lose everything? Had I misunderstood the property? Was there some HOA rule I missed? The longer I stared, the more doubt chewed at me. First thing Monday, I called Sarah, the real estate agent who'd sold me the cabin. When she walked into that motel, her face told me everything. This wasn't normal. "Adam," she said, flipping through her files, "your lot has never been under HOA jurisdiction. Ever." Relief hit me like oxygen after drowning, but with it came anger. If there was no HOA, then what the hell was Laura running? I started digging. Followed her address from the paperwork, expecting some lakeside mansion that matched her power trip. Instead, I found her shuffling out of a rundown apartment complex, climbing into a beat-up Civic. Not exactly queen of the neighborhood. Neighbors shared their stories, $200 for fake water tests, $150 for bogus assessments, $300 for a so-called safety fund. It was all adding up. She'd been milking the community for months. Then came the gut punch. I tailed her to Murphy's Cafe and watched her sit down with 2 guys who looked straight out of a mob flick. Suits, 2 nice eyes, 2 mean. I edged close enough to hear one growl, $15,000 by Friday, Laura. No more excuses. We know where your nephew works. We know where your sister-in-law lives. My stomach dropped. This wasn't some petty tyrant. This was a woman drowning in debt, willing to steal my cabin to buy her way out. And then she flipped the script, filed a restraining order against me. Showed up in court with doctored audio, fake witness statements, even staged photos of me lurking near her apartment. Tyler testified I'd been aggressive, unstable, total fiction. The judge, looking at her stack of forged evidence, banned me from my own property. Just like that, I was officially the bad guy. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt hollow. Justice. Fairness. Forget it. My neighbors stopped waving, my friends avoided me. Laura had poisoned the well, and I started thinking maybe she'd won. Maybe I should just cut my losses and leave. That night in the motel, staring at peeling wallpaper, I nearly convinced myself I'd made a huge mistake buying that cabin. Then, knock, knock, knock. Midnight. I peered through the peephole. Tyler, nervous, twitching, glancing over his shoulder. I let him in, and he whispered, "Man, you need to know what she's really doing." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Dozens of audio files. Recordings of Laura threatening him, admitting the HOA was fake, laying out her whole scam to forge property transfers and sell my cabin to pay off her debts. My jaw clenched as I listened to her voice. She wasn't just power-hungry. She was calculated, ruthless, and willing to use her own nephew as leverage. With that evidence, everything shifted. My lawyer filed motions. The restraining order crumbled, and investigators suddenly had a roadmap into Laura's con. Turns out, she'd been running the same scam in other lake communities, always moving before people caught on. But now, with Tyler's recordings, the mask was slipping. Still, Laura doubled down. She called a community meeting to clear her name, packed the room with neighbors she'd bullied for months. I showed up standing in the back, fists clenched. She took the floor with her clipboard voice trembling but still clinging to authority. "Malicious individuals are spreading lies," she declared, gesturing vaguely at me. But then the investigator stepped up, dropped a folder thick with evidence, and pressed play. Tyler's recordings filled the room, Laura's voice admitting the whole scheme, laughing about forged documents threatening families. The crowd shifted, arms crossed, heads shaking. Mrs. Carter stood and shouted that Laura had stolen her money. George raised his photos of her inspections. The young couple admitted they'd paid into her fake fund. And then Laura broke. She shrieked, her voice cracking, "I was protecting property values. You don't understand." Her eyes darted to the exits, her face twisting with panic. That's when the agents moved. A federal officer stepped forward, cuffs in hand. "Laura Allen, you are under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud conspiracy, and witness intimidation." She twisted, fought, spit venom at me across the room. "This isn't over, Adam. They'll come for you too." Her words echoed desperate, empty, but chilling all the same. And just like that, the tyrant of Harmony Lake, the woman who tried to steal my father's dream cabin, was dragged out under federal custody, her empire of fake authority collapsing in front of everyone she'd conned. Sometimes the scariest villains aren't the ones with weapons. They're the ones with clipboards. Fake smiles and just enough paperwork to make you doubt yourself.